Hello everyone, it's the Pace Chaser again. Welcome to another model review video, and this time we've got the EFE Road Leyland National. Now, full disclosure, this is the same casting as the original EFE Leyland National. So far, EFE Road have only done this version, the long one with the dual doors and the earlier style roof pod. I have previously done EFE Leyland Nationals. I've not done this particular style of casting. As I mentioned in one of the previous reviews, there were 14 different variations between the long and the short version, between single door and dual door, Mark 1 and Mark 2, and the various types of roof pod, the long, lower, earlier type of pod that this one's got, the shorter but slightly higher, later pod that some of the other ones have got, and no pod at all. If you put the different variants together, EFE did 14 different variations. Up to press, I've done the short version with the later style pod and one door. I've done the short version with the later style pod and two doors. I've done the short version with no pod, i.e. the B series, all of those are Mark 1s. I've done the long Mark 1 with the later pod as well. So this version, which is the long one with dual doors and the earlier style of pod, is a new style of the casting for me. The original EFE exclusive first editions, the parent holding company of them, Gilbow Holdings, went into administration in 2016, October 2016. Later on that same month, they were bought by Bachmann Europe, who released a few models under the old EFE name, and it all went quiet until November 2022 when 6 versions of the Leyland National, all of them this long dual door version with the lower pod, were released. The 6 versions included a demonstration bus, a Leyland demonstrator, a Cumberland Motor Services one, a Northern General one, a Nottingham one, a Crossville one, and the one that we're reviewing, which is the London Country one in delivery of Stevenage SuperBus. So this is catalogue number E15114, released, as I said, in November 2022 under the EFE Road name. It is the same casting, as I said earlier on, as the original EFE one. They have made an important difference to it, which does improve the appearance quite a lot. I'll get onto that when I have a look around it. So what I'm going to do is I will have a look at the history of the rail bus modelled. I'll have a look at the history of the Stevenage SuperBus, and then we'll have a look at the box because it's different to the original EFE, and I'll take the bus out of the box and we'll look around it in the normal way. The EFE National is a bit of a Marmite bus, to use a commonly used modern term. You either love it or you hate it. I'm a big fan of it. You've got to remember this is over 30 years old now. It was first released in December 1992. The first version of it done was this one, the dual door long one with the earlier pod. So this casting, as I'm doing this review in November 2024, is coming up to its 32nd birthday, so it's not too bad at all. Back in 1992, if you had a 32-year-old casting of a bus, you'd have been looking at a dinky toy, basically a toy vehicle with not much detail. So the fact that it's still passing muster all these years later, to me, is a remarkable testament to the original model. However, I was talking to a friend of mine about it the other day, and he described it in terms of a 4-letter word. He absolutely hates the EFE National. So it's a matter of opinion. As I say, I'm quite a big fan of it. So the vehicle modelled in this release is London Country's LN1, registered KPA 101K, one of the handful of Nationals in real life that entered service with a K suffix registration. It was delivered new to Reigate Garage in April 1972. The reason it went to Reigate, as it's been mentioned before in various reviews and things, Leyland's customer service wasn't particularly brilliant in the 1970s. And when the National was first produced, they would only supply it in one colour, basically. You could have it painted in one colour. If you wanted any more than one colour, you had to put the rest on yourself. They later relented. They made it so you could have it in a base colour with just a thin relief band. But when this one was produced by the factory in real life in 1972, you could only have it painted in one colour. So they painted it all over plain yellow, and it was sent off to Reigate to have the blue added. When it arrived at Reigate, they found it was substandard, so they sent it back up to Leyland at Workington, the factory that had built it, to have some rectification work. It then went back to Reigate again, where it had the blue relief band added, and then it finally entered service in Stevenage, its intended home depot, in July of 1972. It survived in service until 1978, when it was removed from normal passenger service and became an engineering training vehicle, and it served as that until April of 1985, when it briefly became a mobile classroom. However, in September 1985 it was withdrawn and cannibalised for spare parts, and it was scrapped sometime around 1986. So Stevenage was one of the new towns that were built around London. Realistically, they were expanded versions of old towns. There was an old part of Stevenage, but it was massively expanded in the 1960s. In 1969, the local development corporation had a look at transport and decided that if they could encourage people to use the buses more, it would save them having to expand the road network. At the time, a lot of the bus services were running quite frequently, but they were being provided by crew-operated AEC RT double-deckers, not exactly cutting edge. They did some experiments with one-person operated Daimler fleet lines, but it didn't really work because they still had graded fares. You know, the fare changed depending on how far you were going. Passengers didn't know how much the fare was a lot of the time and didn't have the fare ready, so it took ages at stops. So in July 1971 they introduced a SuperBus concept on initially one route between Chels and the bus station. At peak times it extended to the industrial area. It again was one person operated, but it ran a frequent service but at a flat fare. It was 6p for an adult and 4p for a child, so it was a flat fare service, and it made boarding a lot quicker. It was successful. In 1972 a second route was added. The initial services were run by AEC Swifts and Metro Scanias. They put more Swifts and more Metro Scanias in, but in 1972, to cope with the second service, they also put some Leyland Nationals into use, including this one, LN1. The most notable thing about the SuperBus really was the livery. Back in the early 70s, everybody was using quite conservative liveries. London Country's normal colour scheme was a dark green with just a thin yellow band. But you know, dark greens, maroons, etc. were the order of the day. Selneck up in the northwest had caused great consternation by painting everything orange and white. But this kind of livery would really have turned heads in 1971 and 1972. Nothing really had been seen like it before. The livery itself survived until early in 1980. The third SuperBus service that was run by Leyland Atlantean double-deckers, which were painted in normal green colour, by that stage National Bus Company green, with just the SuperBus logo stuck to the sides. In 1980 the SuperBus livery and logo was phased out, and the buses just ran in Stevenage in green livery, ordinary green livery, with the less memorable Stevenage bus fleet name on them, which was a shame because they got rid of a really strong local brand. So that's enough history. Let's have a look at the model. I'm going to start with the box. This is the original style of EFE box, quite a substantial cardboard outer with a plastic tray that the lid comes off it and the model sits within the tray. So that's how they used to look. And this is how the EFE Road ones look, with a flimsier looking cardboard surround, but a very hefty plastic display box. A bit like, it's more or less like the Corgi original Omnibus Company boxes. I have to say the box is a bit of a ridiculous design. I've not taken this one out before. I thought you just open the end flap, but you don't. It's not. What you do is you pull the bottom apart and it kind of flips up like this to release it, which seems really, really weird. So there it is in its display box. It's screwed to the box in the same way as Corgi original Omnibus models are. I'm not going to unscrew it. I'm not going to look at the chassis because there's not much detail on the chassis of an EFE National. If you want to see the chassis, have a look at some of the other reviews of Nationals I've done. They're all pretty much the same. I'll put the links in the description to this video to the other National reviews that I've done. So there is the model out of its box. First impressions, as always, of an EFE National, it looks like what it should do. As I say, it's a 32-year-old casting as I'm doing this review. It still looks pretty decent. When you look at it, it looks like a Leyland National. It looks exactly like it should do. It's you know, it passes muster to me. It's not perfect. We'll have a look around it in more detail before long. But as I say, generally, from a normal viewing distance, it looks like what it should do, a Leyland National. So we'll start, as always, with the front, if I can get the camera to focus. There we go. Again, as always, the front of an EFE National, always really good. The destination blind with the little angled panels either side of it, as it should be. The windscreen has got the central divider and the wipers picked out in silver on this one. The early Nationals had chrome coloured wipers and divider rather than black on the later ones. And as this is a very early National, it's got that feature which is correct. It's got the pay as you enter exact fair please lettering on the front there, as it should. Again, the lights look good, the distinctive shape around them, the headlights, the side lights, the indicators there, the unit, all well done. Leyland badge printed on, again looks pretty good. The fog lights painted round in black to make them look, well, they are recessed. I was going to say make them look recessed. It is actually, they are recessed into the casting. There is a recess for them. They're not just printed on, but the recess is picked out in black just to accentuate the detail. On the rail one, they were kind of in holes, so that's what it's aiming to look at. Again, the front bumper's nice. On the early ones, it was chrome, and it's painted silver to represent that. Registration plate is crisply printed. Go around to the near side, again it looks pretty good. The doors, the central divider is part of the casting. The little dividers between the leaves at the edges is part of the glazing unit, but they've picked it out in the correct colour paint, yellow on this one. Some of the actual EFE ones, the original production, they forgot to do that, which gave a really strange effect, but this one they've done it. The panel lines and things are quite heavy on this, but they were on the rail bus. The rail bus was quite industrial looking, and they were quite prominent, so they might be a little bit off a scale, but they look actually about right from, you know, normal viewing distances. The little one-man operated sign there is printed on, and you've got the Stevenage garage plate there, SV, and it's the bus's duty number there as well. Fleet number underneath it in gold leaf lettering. Really weird. I mean, London Country at the time used gold leaf for the fleet numbers. And even though this SuperBus livery was really sort of futuristic at the time it was introduced, they still put the traditional gold leaf on it to indicate the fleet number. Legal lettering down at the bottom there, and the unladen weight as well. And you've got little bits for the doors, the emergency door control lettering, and the actual door controls themselves are just printed on. The indicator, there is a bit of relief to that, and it's picked out in orange. Not particularly straight edge, but it looks alright again from a normal viewing distance. And yeah, it's all pretty good. The windows, the opening bars are picked out in silver. You will notice that the window unit doesn't fit very well. That tends to be a feature of Nationals, I'm afraid, including the original EFE ones. A lot of the time, they were one of the first models that EFE did with actual flush glazing, or an attempt at it. The ones before had just had glazing units that stuck in but weren't flush glazed. So it was one of their first releases with flush glazing. And to be fair, they hadn't quite perfected it, so it doesn't always fit very well. You can see there's a bit of a gap there between the window and the frame. The only way to rectify that is to take the bus to pieces and push it back in again, which it will push in, but obviously that means dismantling the bus. The important change I was talking about in fact affects the wheels. The wheels are the same as on the original EFE one. They look pretty good. They've got the sort of slightly strange appearance of real Leyland National wheels, and the rubber tyres that are a separate fitting as well. The important difference is that the rear axle is the correct length. The original EFE exclusive first editions Nationals of all lengths, all door configurations, etc., all 14 variations had too short a rear axle, and the wheels were too far in from the body side. It almost looked like a Reliant three-wheeler had been crossed with a National. It looks ridiculous, and Bachmann have corrected that. They've put a correct length axle on, so the wheels sit in the correct position, and that makes the bus look a lot better. I'll come to the pod when we do the roof, so don't worry about that, but we'll go around the back. It's a bit of an Achilles heel of the EFE National, to be honest. The top of it's pretty good, the shape's nice. The recess there where you could have a destination blind if you wanted. I believe these had a number blind, but it wasn't used. But it was painted black, that is correct for this model. The rear window, again, not fitting particularly well, as you can see. This lens thing that you can just about see on it, most Nationals didn't have it on. Obviously the one that EFE measured and photographed when they first introduced the casting did have it on, and so they've all got it, a bit like the EFE Bristol VR where they've all got top mounted wipers, even though the vast majority of VRs didn't have, because the one that they looked at originally when they introduced the model and photographed and measured would have had them, and it's the same with this National. Most of them didn't have it on. It was to assist the driver when reversing. It just magnified the view in the mirror out of the back of it, basically. But again, most of them didn't have it on. I don't think these actually had it on in real life, but you can't really see it very prominently on this one. It doesn't really sort of come into your vision that much. And the more noticeable thing, as I say, about the window is it's not fitting properly. The water filler there is printed on. The lights are cast and picked out in paint. They look quite good. They are quite heavy, but the rail ones were as well. They were quite prominent. It's this area that kind of goes wrong with the EFE National, really. When they were new, they had like 3 moulding lines across the back, and then they had a sloping recess that the registration plate fitted in. Some operators later rebuilt them with a flat panel so they could get an advert on, but the EFE one just has a flat panel. It's not. There's not even an attempt to put a black surround on the registration plate to make it look like it's recessed, and it does detract from the appearance slightly. The other thing is the grille. Obviously, it was a grille in real life, and there was a prominent fan behind it that you could see. As I mentioned before, I remember seeing Nationals when I was a kid coming up behind them, and I was always fascinated by this fan. When it was stood still, it would be slowly rotating as the bus clunked away. Then as the bus revved up and set off, the fan would spin faster. And then, to be honest, generally the entire fan back of the bus road would disappear in a cloud of grey smoke. But, you know, that you'd see the fan speed up. And I always found it fascinating. It's a shame they haven't tried to represent the fan. The original EFE models had this, the grille done like this, just black painted square basically. Later on in the life of the original EFE, they went to printing a kind of grille on, but it still didn't have a representation of a fan. And Bachmann have gone back to painting the black square on to represent the grille. What they have done though is put a little black rectangle underneath it on the bumper to represent the smaller grille, which the original EFE didn't usually bother with. So that is an improvement, but again, it doesn't look right. It just looks like exactly what it is, a black square. There is a way, I've shown in some of the early reviews, I've got a photocopy of the back of a Pirate Models kit, which you can cut out the little fan from that and stick it on. Again, I'll put the link in the description to this video to the other National reviews, and you can see me doing that. One nice feature they've done is they've represented these little vents above the window, which weren't represented on the original casting. They're not cast in, they're just printed on, but they do look pretty good. And again, the bumper's been painted silver to represent the chrome of the rail thing on the early Nationals. Going around to the offside again, the detailing is quite heavy, but it was on the rail bus. There's a bit of marking on there for these little cover flaps for various things to say what they are. The fuel filler's got the word fuel above it, and it's picked out in silver, which is a nice detail. And again, the indicator is part of the casting. You've got the Stevenage depot plate there and duty number. It all looks pretty good, but again, the windows aren't quite fitting properly. You can see there's a bit of a gap. Sorry, I'll try and get a bit more light on it. Just bear with me, there we go. See, there's a bit of a gap again between the bottom of the window and the frame. Again, the only way to really cure that is to take the bus to pieces and push the windows back in properly. But yeah, there's not really anything you can do about it. There are no mirrors on this one. Again, it was an early EFE, it didn't have mirrors, and Bachmann haven't put the mirrors onto it, so there are no mirrors. I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me when mirrors are not modelled, because it's just one less thing to break off it. The roof, as always on an EFE National, looks good. The moulding lines, the ribs along it, modelled very nicely. The pod looks good as well. The earlier pod, it had this sort of curved appearance at the front. The middle bit sort of protruded a little bit, and there are all these vents which are represented in the casting. Again, the uneven shape of the top of it. The shape of the sides is pretty good as well, and the back, it's all nicely shaped and it looks very, very good. As I said, not much detail on the underside of an EFE National. Again, look at my other review videos for that, but basically there's very, very little printed on there. It's mainly just saying EFE Leyland National on the bottom of it. One thing is, as you can see on this, it's painted yellow, which is a bit of a problem. Or certainly underneath the front of it, is it does appear actually that the rest of it's painted in a darker colour, which is good to see. It saves it shining up at you, but it would benefit from just painting that little bit under the front there in black, so it's not as prominent when you're looking at the bus. Say you're displaying it on a hill or something on your layout or whatever, you'd be able to see that shining up at you, and you shouldn't be able to. The interior, as you can see, is moulded in green, which is correct for the rail bus. The seats would have been green. The back of them were a kind of whitish grey colour on the early Nationals, which isn't represented and not picked out. The seat back grab rails are not picked out in silver either, and the floor isn't a different colour. That is a bit disappointing. The original EFE, towards the end of their life, before they went into administration, they'd started to do a bit of contrasting colour on the interiors. They'd done a bit, you know, the floor would be a different colour. The seat back grab rails would have been picked out. and it's a bit of a shame that Bachmann have gone back to doing the original thing that they had at first when the models were first released, where it's just done all in one colour. Another slightly weird thing as well, you can see this bus didn't have that many opening windows, and what they've done, the windows are still modelled as open, as they just haven't picked them out on the ones that don't open, which again looks a bit strange, but all in all the appearance isn't too bad. So how much will one of these cost you? Well, yeah, there's a story. If you want the original EFE one, sorry, I'll just adjust the light again. It's a problem of filming in November. It's not very light in this studio, and I do have various lights put on the models, but they don't always pick them out as well as they should do. That's better. If you want the original EFE version of the casting, which as I say is the same apart from it's got the silly little short axle and the wheels stuck in a bit further than they should be, I looked on eBay for the purposes of this, again doing it end of November 2024. The cheapest one I could find was £10.90 including postage and packing. That was the Hanson Dorset National Bus Company red version. So yeah, £10.90. The most expensive I could find was £45 plus £4.45 postage and packing, and that was there was a Midland General one which is quite scarce, and there was also a Southdown one which aren't as scarce. I wouldn't pay that much for a Southdown, but possibly the Midland General, it might be worth it. So £49.45. But as I say, bottom end £10.90. And Liz Keith had them for anywhere between £10 and £30. The £10 was the Hanson Dorset, and they also had a Crosville version in that for that price. And the £30 was one of the Australian prototypes that EFE did. Again, that's the original EFE National. And at Liz Keith, you would have postage on top of that of about a £5 as well. So you're looking at about £15 to £35. If you want the EFE Road version, they're mainly available new. They come up rarely second hand, but they're generally new. Cheapest one I could find on eBay was £35.70 with free postage, and the most expensive was £42.95 with free postage, so there wasn't much in it. This one was £29.24 because I got sent an offer on it, plus £3.40 postage and packing, so £32.64, so it was a bit cheaper. But as I say, when I looked, £35.70 was your starting price, and £42.95 was the more expensive price. That's for the EFE Road version, again in as new condition. TTC Diecast were doing a special offer on them when I looked, £24.95 plus postage and packing, so about £30 all in, and they had all 6 of the EFE Road versions including this one at the time, but limited stocks, and it's a limited special offer. I think their normal price is somewhere around £30 to £35. And again, I looked at Liz Keith, they had them for £36 brand new, again with postage on top, so you'd be looking at about £41 with postage. And they had all the versions apart from this London Country SuperBus one. So yeah, you are looking somewhere normally between £30 and about £40 for one. Are they worth it? Not really, to be honest, no. If you just want a national, you're better off to get one of the original EFE ones that's cheaper and look at painting it, to be honest. It is an old casting. Obviously production costs in China, transport costs have gone up, so they have to charge more money to make any money at all, and the going rate now for a die cast is about £40 to £45 normally, so they are slightly cheaper than most of them at, as I say, 30 to 40 normally. But the problem is, it is a 32-year-old casting. Is it really worth 30 odd quid? Not really. I got a bit of a bonus from work, so I decided to get one because I was interested to see what EFE Road had done, what Bachmann had done to the original national model, whether they'd improved it or not. And if I'm being honest, I wanted to review one for this channel, so that's why I got one. Would I normally pay that kind of money for an EFE National? No, I wouldn't. You know, I like the model, it's good for its age, but again, it is good for its age. It's not exactly cutting edge, and it's probably not worth that kind of money. But again, if you want one, of the ones they've done, as I say, Leyland Demonstrator, Cumberland, this one, the Stevenage SuperBus London Country, Northern General, Nottingham or Crosville, if you want one of them in your collection, then obviously you need to pay the money for it if that's what you want. You know, nobody's stopping you, but to me, probably as a 30-odd-year-old casting, and no, it's maybe not worth the kind of money that they are going for. It's a shame that the Rapido Trains version has been put on hold, as I'm doing this again in November 2024. They announced about a month or so ago that their national was being put on hold. They weren't going to pursue it for the moment, and it's a shame because I'd love to see what Rapido could do to a Leyland National. But as I say, the EFE one's not bad. It's a decent model, so if you want one, obviously go out and get one. Thank you as always for watching, take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.